The signal had been traveling through space for 3,000 years. It was a simple message made of numbers and patterns. Any intelligent species would understand it. The message said one thing: you are not alone. Come find us. The Galactic Concord had created this signal long ago. The Concord was a union of 12 peaceful alien races. They had built great cities on gentle worlds. Their planets had calm weather, soft gravity, and plenty of food. War was something they read about in old history books. They had evolved to cooperate, to talk, to find peaceful solutions. For centuries, the signal brought new friends to the Concord. Each new species was welcomed with celebration. Trade routes opened, knowledge was shared. The galaxy grew more connected and more peaceful. Then the signal reached Earth. The humans detected the message on a cold Tuesday morning. Scientists in a small research station saw the pattern in their data. Within hours, the whole planet knew. Humanity was not alone in the universe. Someone was calling them. It took 5 years to build a ship that could answer that call. The vessel was called the Perseverance. It was not elegant. It was not beautiful. It was a mining ship rebuilt with new engines and life support systems. The engineers who made it had no idea what they would find in deep space. They built the ship to survive anything. The crew of 37 volunteers knew they might never come home. The journey would take 6 months through unknown space. They went anyway. The trip was hard. The water recycling system broke twice. The oxygen generators failed once. A small fire damaged the medical bay. The crew fixed each problem with wire, tape, and stubborn refusal to die. They ate emergency rations for the last month. They exercised in a tiny gym to keep their muscles strong against the ship's artificial gravity. When the Perseverance finally arrived at Concord Station, the aliens were waiting. Ambassador Krill Veth of the Solari people had prepared a welcome speech. He had studied human radio signals for weeks. He thought he understood these new beings. He was wrong. The airlock opened and the humans walked out. Krill Veth's 4 eyes went wide. These creatures were tall and solid. They moved with a strange confidence. Most shocking of all, they were smiling. "What a ride," said Captain Elena Vasquez, the mission commander. She stretched her arms above her head. "Good to finally be here." Krill Veth's translator device struggled with the casual tone. "You have traveled for 6 of your months through uncharted space," he said carefully. "This journey would kill most known species." Captain Vasquez shrugged. "We lost some weight. Nothing serious." The medical examinations began the next day. Concord doctors scanned the human bodies and grew more alarmed with each test. The humans had dense bones that could survive hard impacts. Their muscles were powerful, built to fight against Earth's crushing gravity. Their immune systems were armies of cells that constantly battled invisible enemies. "Your body is at war with itself," said Dr. Melleth, a Vreen physician. "Your cells are always fighting. How are you alive?" Lieutenant James Chen laughed. "That's just how it works. Keeps us healthy." Dr. Melleth did not understand the concept of healthy that included constant internal warfare. The Concord Council met in emergency session. The 12 ambassadors sat in a circle of floating chairs, their images projected from across the galaxy. The topic was simple. What had they invited into their peaceful civilization? "They come from a death world," said Ambassador Krill Veth. His voice was troubled. "Their planet has extreme temperatures, violent weather, and predators everywhere. Their own history is filled with war and conflict." "They seem friendly," offered Ambassador Threll of the Mindari. "For now," replied Krilveth. "But what happens when they are not friendly? What happens when these Deathworlders decide they want something we have?" The council had no answer. Meanwhile, the humans explored the station with endless curiosity. They asked questions about everything. They wanted to know how the artificial gravity worked. They wanted to taste alien food. They wanted to learn alien languages. Their energy seemed infinite. Captain Vasquez requested a meeting with the full council. She stood before the 12 ambassadors, a single human facing the leaders of galactic civilization. "We know you're scared of us," she said simply. "We can see it in your eyes. You've read our history. You know what we've done to each other." The ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. "But here's what that history also shows," Vasquez continued. "When we face a common enemy, we unite. When someone threatens our friends, we fight for them. We didn't cross the galaxy to conquer you. We came because we were curious. We came because we wanted to meet our neighbors. She smiled, and for just a moment, the ambassadors saw something warm in this strange predator species. Give us a chance, said Captain Vasquez. You might be surprised what humans can do when they're fighting for something they believe in. The Concorde agreed to let the humans stay. They established a small embassy on the station. Trade discussions began. Cultural exchanges were planned. Everything seemed peaceful. But deep in space, far beyond the Concorde's borders, something ancient was waking up. Something that had been sleeping for 10,000 years. Something hungry. The Vreth Dominion had detected new prey. And they were coming. The Vreth had ruled the galaxy once. 10,000 years ago, they had swept across 100 star systems like a plague of hungry shadows. They were not a single creature, but a swarm. Millions of insect-like bodies controlled by a single hive mind. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They consumed. The Concorde's ancestors had barely survived. Entire species had been eaten into extinction. Worlds had been stripped of all life. The war had ended only when the Vreth exhausted themselves and fell into a deep hibernation. The Concorde had spent the following millennia building their peaceful civilization, hoping the nightmare would never return. Now the Vreth Queen stirred in her dark chamber at the edge of the galaxy. Her ancient mind touched the thoughts of billions of sleeping drones. She had felt something new in the signals pattern. A new species had answered the call. Fresh prey. The first attack came without warning. A Concorde colony world called Vestral 7 had 2 million inhabitants. They were farmers and teachers and artists. They had never seen violence in their lives. The Vreth Vanguard fleet dropped out of hyperspace at dawn. Within 6 hours, Vestral 7 was silent. The colony's final transmission showed swarms of black shapes descending from burning skies. Then nothing. The Concorde Assembly gathered in shock. Ambassadors wept openly. Some could not speak at all. The trauma of ancient war lived in their genetic memory, and now that nightmare had returned. We must negotiate, said Ambassador Krilveth, his voice shaking. We must find what they want and give it to them. They want to eat us, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. Captain Yuki Tanaka stood in the visitors' gallery. She had replaced Captain Vasquez as the human mission commander 6 months ago. She was smaller than Vasquez, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. The Vreth are not interested in negotiation, Tanaka continued. I have read your historical records. They consumed everything in their path until they ran out of energy. They are awake now because they are hungry again. You cannot reason with hunger. Ambassador Threll made a gesture of distress. Then what do? We have no military. We have no weapons. We evolved beyond such primitive things. We didn't, said Tanaka. The chamber fell silent. The human captain walked to the center of the assembly floor. She looked at each ambassador in turn. These gentle beings had built wonders across the stars. They had created art and music and technology that humans could barely imagine, but they had forgotten something important. You sent a signal into the void, Tanaka said. You wanted to find friends. You found us. You didn't know what you were calling. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We fought ice ages and plagues and predators and each other. We are very, very good at surviving. She paused, letting her words sink in. You are afraid of us. I understand. We are dangerous. But right now, dangerous is exactly what you need. Ambassador Krilveth's voice was barely a whisper. What are you suggesting? Let us fight for you, said Tanaka. Give us authorization to coordinate your defense. We will stop the Vreth. How? Asked Ambassador Meleth. You have 1 ship and 37 people. Tanaka smiled. And there was something fierce in that smile. We have a whole planet full of people just like us. People who have been waiting their entire existence for a purpose bigger than themselves. Send the message to Earth. Tell them what is happening. Tell them we have friends who need help. The vote was not unanimous. Many ambassadors feared the humans almost as much as the Vreth, but the images of Vestral 7 burned in their minds. They had no other choice. The message reached Earth 3 weeks later. Captain Tanaka's face appeared on every screen on the planet. She spoke simply and clearly. She told humanity about the Concord, the peaceful aliens who had welcomed them. She told them about the Vreth, the ancient enemy that was waking. She told them about the 2 million souls lost on Vestral 7. Then she made her request. They need us, she said. Not our diplomats, not our scientists. They need our soldiers. They need our ships. They need everything we can give them. The galaxy called to us, and now it is calling again. This time, it is calling for help. Earth's response was immediate. Within hours, old enemies were shaking hands. Borders opened. Resources flowed. Factories that had built cars began building weapons. Scientists shared secrets that had been guarded for generations. The United Nations held an emergency session that lasted 4 days without break. When it ended, a single declaration had been signed by every nation on Earth. Humanity would answer the call. Recruitment centers opened in every city. The lines stretched around blocks, around neighborhoods, around entire towns. Young and old stood together. Former soldiers stood next to students. Factory workers stood next to professors. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted to fight. General Marcus Stone, appointed as commander of Earth's first interstellar military force, looked at the reports coming in from around the world. He had commanded armies before, but nothing like this. This was every human who could hold a weapon, every engineer who could build a ship, every doctor who could heal a wound. "How long until we can launch?" asked his aide. 4 months, he said Stone. "Maybe 3 if we push hard." "The Concord says ship construction takes them decades." Stone nodded slowly. "They don't know humans. We've been building for war since we climbed down from the trees. This is what we were made for." Far away on Concord Station, Captain Tanaka watched Earth's response with quiet pride. The Vreth had conquered 100 civilizations. They had never met humans. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The shipyards worked day and night without stopping. The sound of hammers and welding torches filled the air on the 6 continents. Workers slept in 4-hour shifts. Engineers lived on coffee and determination. They were building a fleet that would cross the stars and face an enemy no human had ever seen. The ships were not beautiful. They were boxes of steel and fire, designed for one purpose: destruction. The Concorde built ships like artwork, with flowing curves and elegant systems. Human ships looked like weapons because that is exactly what they were. The first vessel completed was called the Hammer of Earth. It was 300 meters of pure aggression. Its hull bristled with weapons that the Concorde had never imagined. Kinetic cannons that fired metal at incredible speeds. Missile tubes loaded with nuclear warheads. Armor plates thick enough to survive impacts that would vaporize Concorde ships. Admiral Yuki Tanaka, newly promoted, inspected the Hammer before its launch. She walked through corridors that smelled of fresh paint and new metal. Young soldiers saluted as she passed. Their eyes were bright with purpose. "How do you feel?" asked Colonel David Okonkwo, her second in command. "Ready," said Tanaka. "Finally ready." The fleet launched from Earth orbit on a cold morning in December. 147 ships carrying 200,000 soldiers. Behind them, more ships were already being built. Humanity was not sending an army. It was awakening a war machine that had slept since the last World War. The Concorde watched the human fleet arrive at their staging area with a mixture of hope and terror. These ships did not dock gracefully. They moved like predators, always alert, always scanning for threats. Ambassador Krilveth visited the Hammer of Earth at Admiral Tanaka's invitation. He walked through the ship in stunned silence. Human soldiers trained in the corridors, practicing hand-to-hand combat. The ship's gym was filled with screaming men and women, lifting weights and running on machines. "Why do they train so hard?" Krilveth asked. "Don't they have weapons?" "Weapons can fail," said Tanaka. "Bodies don't. Every human soldier is trained to fight with their hands, with knives, with anything they can grab. We don't give up just because we lose our tools." Krilveth's translator struggled to process this philosophy. In conquered society, you simply built better tools. The first battle came at the Valar system. A Vreth swarm of 60 ships had surrounded a Concorde refugee convoy. 10,000 civilians were trapped, waiting to die. The Vreth were in no hurry. They enjoyed fear. It made the feeding sweeter. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like lightning from a clear sky. Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled across all frequencies. All ships, weapons free, show them what we are. The hammer of Earth fired first. A wall of missiles screamed toward the Vreth formation. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness of space. Vreth ships disintegrated. Others scattered in confusion. The swarm had never faced resistance like this. Their hive mind buzzed with alarm. These new creatures were not running. They were attacking. "Press forward," Tanaka ordered. "Don't give them time to think." Human ships carved through the Vreth formation. Kinetic rounds tore through alien hulls. Lasers sliced through chitinous armor. And when the weapons were not enough, human ships rammed Vreth vessels directly, sacrificing themselves to protect the convoy. The Vreth commander tried to reorganize its forces, but humans did not fight like other species. They did not follow predictable patterns. Each human captain made independent decisions, adapting to the battle in real time. The swarm's single mind could not track so many individual threats. Colonel Okonkwo led the boarding parties. 50 Marines in heavy armor cut their way into a Vreth carrier ship. The interior was dark and filled with toxic gas. The Marines did not care. Their suits protected them. Their training prepared them. They found the Vreth warriors waiting in the corridors. The aliens were nightmares made flesh, all claws and teeth and armored shells. They had killed soldiers from 100 species. The human Marines killed them anyway. Private Sarah Chen fired her rifle until it overheated, then picked up a metal pipe and kept fighting. Sergeant Yusuf Ali took a claw through his shoulder and strangled a Vreth drone with his remaining hand. They fought like demons, like monsters, like humans. When the battle ended, 43 Vreth ships were destroyed. The human fleet had lost 12 vessels and 8,000 soldiers. The Concorde convoy escaped safely. Admiral Tanaka looked at the casualty reports with hard eyes. 8,000 dead in a single battle. For the Concorde, such losses would end a war. They would sue for peace, offer anything to stop the killing. Tanaka closed the report and opened her communication channel. "All ships begin repairs. We advance in 6 hours." On the refugee convoy, a young Solari child pressed her face against a window. She had watched the human ships fight for her people. She had seen them die for strangers they had never met. "Mother," she whispered, "what are they?" Her mother had no answer. No species in the Concorde's history had ever fought like this, with such fury, with such willingness to sacrifice. Across the galaxy, the Vreth Queen felt something she had not experienced in 10,000 years. Doubt. These new creatures did not fear death. They charged toward it, laughing. They treated war as something natural, something they were built for. The Queen sent more swarms toward Concorde space, larger fleets, more warriors, and the humans came to meet them every single time. The war had lasted 2 years. 100 star systems had seen battle. The maps in Admiral Tanaka's command center were covered with red marks showing where humans had fought and died. 2 million human soldiers had fallen. 2 million families had received messages telling them their sons and daughters would not be coming home. On Earth, monuments were being built before the war was even finished. But still they came. New ships launched every month. New volunteers filled the training camps. Humanity had found a cause worth dying for, and they would not stop until that cause was won. The Vreth adapted to human tactics. They learned to expect the unexpected. They armored their ships more heavily. They developed new poisons that could penetrate human suits. The war grew harder and more brutal. Admiral Tanaka studied the battle reports every night. She saw patterns that others missed. The Vreth were spreading themselves thin, trying to defend too many systems at once. Their supply lines stretched back to a single point, the Vreth threshold. "It's their home system," she told her commanders in a secret meeting. "Every Vreth in the galaxy is connected to the Queen. Kill the Queen, and the swarm will collapse." Colonel Okonkwo frowned at the star charts. "The threshold is defended by 800 ships. We have barely 100 left in fighting condition." "Then we'll have to be smarter," said Tanaka. The plan was insane. Human strategists had a long history of insane plans. They also had a long history of making those plans work. The fleet would strike directly at the heart of Vreth space. No stopping for supply. No waiting for reinforcements. One single thrust like a spear into the enemy's chest. They would either kill the queen or die trying. The night before the attack, Admiral Tanaka walked through the Hammer of Earth. The ship had been repaired and rebuilt so many times that almost nothing remained of the original vessel. Like the crew inside it, the ship had been broken and reforged by war. She found Private Chen in the observation deck, staring at the stars. Chen had been promoted 3 times and wounded twice. She was 23 years old and had killed more enemies than she could count. Scared? Tanaka asked, sitting beside her. Terrified, Chen admitted, but I'd rather be terrified here than safe at home. Why? Chen thought for a long moment. Because someone has to do this. Someone has to stand between the darkness and everyone else. If not us, who? Tanaka nodded slowly. This was why humanity would win. Not because they were stronger or smarter, because they simply refused to let evil win, no matter the cost. The fleet jumped to the Vreth threshold at dawn. They emerged into chaos. 800 Vreth ships were waiting. The space around the threshold was thick with enemies, a wall of claws and weapons and hateful intelligence. All ships, Tanaka broadcast calmly. We are not here to survive. We are here to end this. Attack. The Battle of the Vreth Threshold was the largest in human history. It made every war Earth had ever fought look like a minor disagreement. Ships exploded in waves of nuclear fire. Debris filled the space between stars. Human ships died by the dozen, but for every human ship lost, 3 Vreth vessels burned. The swarm could not understand what they were facing. These creatures did not retreat when damaged. They did not hesitate when outnumbered. They flew their broken ships directly into enemy formations and detonated their reactors. On the 3rd day, the Hammer of Earth broke through the Vreth perimeter. Its hull was torn open in a dozen places. Life support had failed on 6 decks. Half its crew was dead. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge, bleeding from a wound on her forehead. The Vreth Queen's flagship was visible through the shattered view screen. Massive and ancient, it had commanded swarms for 10,000 years. Target the Queen's ship, Tanaka ordered. Everything we have left. The hammer fired its remaining missiles. Kinetic rounds screamed across the void. Other human ships joined the attack, focusing every weapon on a single target. The Queen's flagship burned, but it was not dead. It turned toward the hammer, firing weapons that tore through armor like paper. The bridge shook. Consoles exploded. Officers fell. She's coming for us, Colonel Okonkwo reported. Collision course. Tanaka gripped her command chair. The Queen wanted to ram them, to kill the human commander personally. It was a mistake born of rage. The Vreth were not used to feeling rage. Hold position, Tanaka said. Let her come. The 2 ships rushed toward each other. At the last moment, Tanaka gave her final order. Launch the Marines. 50 boarding pods burst from the hammer's hull. They crossed the gap between ships in seconds and drilled into the Queen's flagship. Inside each pod were humans armed with rifles, explosives, and absolute determination. Colonel Okonkwo led the assault personally. They fought through corridors filled with the Queen's personal guards. The elite Vreth warriors were faster and stronger than any humans had faced before. They died anyway. Okonkwo found the Queen's chamber at the center of the ship. She was enormous, a mountain of chitin and ancient flesh. Her mind touched his, trying to fill him with fear. He felt the terror. He felt the despair. He raised his weapon anyway. Humanity sends its regards, he said and fired. The Queen screamed. Her death cry echoed through the hive mind, reaching every Vreth in the galaxy. Across 100 systems, drones stopped fighting. Ships went dark. The swarm had lost its brain. The battle of the Vreth threshold was over. Admiral Tanaka watched the Queen's flagship break apart from the hammer's damaged bridge. Fires burned around her. Warning alarms filled the air. But she was smiling. They had won. Humanity had won. The ceasefire negotiations took place on a rebuilt Concord station. The new Vreth Queen, daughter of the one humanity had killed, appeared on view screens across the galaxy. She was smaller than her mother, younger and marked by something no Vreth Queen had ever shown before. Fear. Admiral Tanaka sat across from the holographic image. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but the scars on her hands told the true story. 2 years of war had left marks on every human who survived. "You have destroyed our armies," the queen said. Her voice was cold but uncertain. "You have killed our mother. What more do you want?" "Peace," said Tanaka simply. The queen's image flickered with confusion. "Peace? You could destroy us completely. You could hunt us to extinction. Why would you stop?" Tanaka leaned forward. "Because we are not you. We fight to protect, not to consume. The war is over. Go back to your space. Stay there. Never threaten the Concord again. And if we refuse, then we will finish what we started." The queen was silent for a long time. Her ancient mind tried to understand these impossible creatures. They had every advantage. They could crush the Vreth remnants without effort. Yet they were offering mercy. "We accept," the queen finally said. "The Dominion will withdraw." The treaty was signed the next day. The Vreth retreated to their original territory, diminished and broken. They would spend generations recovering from what humanity had done to them. And they would remember, forever. The Concord Assembly held a celebration unlike anything in galactic history. 12 species came together to honor the humans who had saved them. Ambassador Krill Veth spoke for all of them. "We sent a signal into the void," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We hoped to find friends. We found something more. We found guardians. We found warriors who would bleed for strangers they had never met." He turned to Admiral Tanaka, who stood with the surviving commanders of the human fleet. "We were afraid of you. We saw your violent history and thought you were dangerous. We were right. You are dangerous, but you are also noble and brave and selfless beyond anything we could imagine." The assembly rose to their feet. 12 species applauded together. The sound echoed through the station, a thunder of gratitude and respect. Admiral Tanaka accepted a medal that had never existed before, the Star of the Concord, created specifically for humans. She held it in her scarred hands and thought of everyone who should have been standing beside her. 2 million soldiers who would never see this day. Friends and comrades lost in the darkness between stars. They had paid the price for this peace. "We didn't do this for medals," Tanaka said to the assembly. "We didn't do it for glory or territory or power. We did it because it was right. Because when someone calls for help, you answer. That's what humans do." The rebuilding took decades. Destroyed colonies were restored. Trade routes reopened. The Concord grew stronger than it had been before the war. And everywhere, humans were welcomed as heroes. New human colonies spread across former Vreth territory. Families settled on worlds that had been battlefields. Children grew up under alien suns, playing in gardens planted over ground that had been soaked with blood. On one such world, a young girl named Maya ran through fields of strange purple flowers. Her parents had been soldiers. Her grandfather had died at the Vreth threshold. She knew the stories by heart. "Maya," her mother called, "time for dinner." Maya ran back to their small house. It was built from local materials and human engineering, a blend of two civilizations. Inside, her father was cooking something that smelled of earth spices and alien vegetables. "Mom," Maya said as they sat down to eat, "was Grandpa scared when he fought the Vreth?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Yes, honey, he was scared. Everyone was scared." "Then why did he fight?" Her mother smiled sadly. "Because some things are more important than fear. Some things are worth dying for. Your grandfather believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. He believed humans had a responsibility to help." Maya thought about this while she ate. Outside the window, ships crossed the sky, human and alien vessels traveling together. The galaxy was peaceful now, safe, because of people like her grandfather. On the conquered capital world, a new monument stood in the central plaza. It was a simple design, created by human and alien artists working together. A human soldier stood with hand extended, helping a fallen alien to its feet. The inscription below was in 100 languages. "They came from a world of death. They brought us life." Ambassador Krill Veth visited the monument every morning. He had been terrified of humans once. Now he could not imagine the galaxy without them. They had taught the Concord something important. Sometimes peace required warriors. Sometimes mercy required strength. Far away, the Vreth remained in their territory, watching and remembering. They would never forget the species that had humbled them. In their histories, humans would be known as the first to defeat, the creatures who could not be conquered. And on Earth, the signal continued to broadcast into the void. The message had changed slightly. It still said you are not alone, but now it added something new. And if you need help, we will come. The Deathworlders had found their purpose among the stars, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as protectors, guardians, the fury that answered when peaceful worlds called for help. Humanity had finally found its place in the universe, and that place was standing between the darkness and everyone else, forever.